I don't know if it's just me, but I'm just so refreshed by the moral clarity that was provided by Bibi Netanyahu when he spoke to that joint meeting in Congress last week.
Yeah, it was refreshing and it was needed. There's
He's
like real leadership there.
just stripping it all down, speaking without equivocation, and from a place of substantial knowledge. That's just something we're not often treated to from politicians in this country anymore. And just a reminder, because I also want to go back to Douglas Murray's talk that we played a bit of earlier in the program when Yuval Levin joined us. There's a couple more things that Murray said that I think are worth noting, sort of building off of Bibi's speech last week. But again, the message heard around the world about Israel's position with respect to Islamist terrorists. There's no leading with an apology here.
They call Israel a colonialist state. Don't they know that the land of Israel is where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob prayed, where
No, they
Isaiah
don't.
and Jeremiah preached,
No, they don't know.
and where David and Solomon ruled? For nearly 4,000 years, the land of Israel has been the homeland of the Jewish people. It's always been our home. It will always be our home.
And Douglas Murray on the rank hypocrisy and ignorance of the radical left, who serve as apologists for the radical Islamist terrorists, the feminists.
We have all for years heard the feminists issue a call on male sexual violence against women. Believe all women. But where was the solidarity? Where was the sympathy or even belief when the women were Jews? The belief evaporates.
And Murray, this British author I mentioned earlier, this talk that he gave, very good. The history of anti-Semitism, too, a little history lesson from Murray like we got from Bibi. The things that the people running around tearing down posters of Israeli hostages and stuff, the things they don't know, could fill many, many libraries, the things they don't know.
Anti-Semitism is famously a shape-shifting virus. Sometimes in the past, people hated Jews for their religion. Then you couldn't hate people for their religion, so people hated the Jews for their race. Then when you weren't allowed to hate people for their race anymore, you could hate the Jews for having and defending a state. This is the eternal challenge for the Jewish people. Gregor von Retzori, among others, showed us this. It's their challenge to be hated for being poor and for being rich. For being integrated and for not integrating. For being stateless, remember, rootless cosmopolitans, and also to be hated for having a state. But this is not only a challenge for the Jews, it's a challenge for all of us. As Vasily Grossman wrote in the dead center of his masterpiece, Life and Fate, and I quote, "Anti-Semitism is always a means rather than an end. It is a measure of the contradictions yet to be resolved. It is a mirror for the failings of individuals, social structures, and state systems. Tell me what you accuse the Jews of. I'll tell you what you're guilty of."
For more on this, pleased to be joined by Eugene Kontorovich. He's the head of the International Law Department at the Kohelet Policy Forum, a Jerusalem think tank. Also a professor at George Mason University's Scalia Law School. Professor Kontorovich, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, great to be on with you, Dan.
You know, the point that Douglas Murray was getting to at the end in his little brief recitation of the history of anti-Semitism and standing on the shoulders of scholars, is the point that Bibi made as well, is that the fight against Hamas and other Iranian-backed terrorist organizations in the Middle East is not just a fight for Israel, but it's a fight for the West in general, as we have seen visited upon America many times, but we seem to have short memories. This is the key point that he made in mentioning the burning of American flags and the denunciation of Western democracies, generally speaking, not limited to Israel.
Correct. Israel has always been identified by the mullah regime in Iran as the little Satan, and America is the great Satan. When you get the little Satan first, and then you go after the great Satan. But Iran is already going after America. Iranian-backed forces throughout the Middle East, in Syria and Iraq, are routinely attacking American forces. And the Houthis, who were not any kind of problem before Iran trained and armed them, are under Iranian direction almost daily attacking international shipping in the Gulf of Aden and off of Yemen, which is a major international waterway. And basically, they are holding much of the world's shipping and trade in their hands. And the United States, under the Biden administration, is doing close to nothing about it.
It was interesting, Netanyahu's approach, too, in his speech. I mean, he was complimentary to the Biden administration for the support that's given, but he's also been pretty stern in responding to criticism by saying we are going to essentially continue this campaign until Hamas is eradicated and hostages are freed and so forth. And I wonder what your reaction is, because a lot of people would expect the leader of a country who is being provided support by America to come hat in hand, to rattle the tin cup, to offer all sorts of bon mots to the political class. But that's not what Netanyahu did.
So, for one, he was being extremely courteous. And I think damning the Biden administration with faint praise.
Yeah.
In fact, the Biden administration has been restricting a huge variety of weapons to Israel. It has been blocking shipments of weapons Israel has already purchased and which have already been authorized by Congress in the middle of this war started by Hamas on October 7th, and as Israel is under attack from Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen. That is the context in which he has, the President Biden has found it fit to restrict weapons. So I think the tone, Bibi's tone was, thank you for what you've sent, but certainly it does not rise to the moment, and it does not rise to the need. I myself, think America, need not be looking for overseas adventures. And what's great about Israel as an ally is that it is a real ally. Israel in the Middle East prevents America from having to fight these wars. That is to say, Israel is fighting the wars that otherwise America might be pulled into. Israel is taking on Iran, taking on Syria, and that's an extreme benefit for the United States. So I think there was also a very interesting part where Prime Minister Netanyahu, he thanked the Biden administration. Thank you for sending some weapons during the war, which were already purchased and paid for congressionally appropriated money. And then he thanked also Donald Trump. And the list of things that he thanked Donald Trump for were noticeably longer and more ambitious. Recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing the Golan Heights as Israeli territory, the Abraham Accords, which is the first time actually a diplomatic plan has brought peace to the Middle East. Those are massive accomplishments. And then, the relatively the lack of any comparable accomplishments in the Biden administration was the quiet condemnation of the record of this administration for 4 years. It has tried to bring peace by appeasing the Muslim Brotherhood, by appeasing Iran, and instead it has only pushed it further off when really truly the region was on the brink of broad agreement for reconciling relations at the end of the Trump administration.
Well, what kind of message did it send when the presidential candidate Kamala Harris attended a sorority event in Indiana rather than attend his address?
Yeah, that's right. I think it sent exactly the message that she wants to send. It's the message that she also sent in her comments immediately after meeting with Netanyahu. It was a message to the pro-Hamas activist base of the party, which is, as she said, I see you, I hear you, and I'm with you. There was a lot of opposition amongst the squad progressive faction of the party to Netanyahu's visit. Perhaps 70 Democratic congressmen boycotted, even though, as I point out in my article in the Wall Street Journal, when William Ruto, the president of Kenya, who had been indicted for crimes against humanity by the ICC, the International Criminal Court, only to have the case collapse because the witnesses all recanted their testimony among allegations of witness intimidation, those people met with Ruto. Kamala Harris hosted a luncheon for Ruto. So the stark difference in the treatment suggests she is cool on Israel. She wants to resuscitate the policy of the Biden and Obama administration that it's good for America to have daylight with Israel. And she has not learned from the mistakes of those administrations, which is when the bad guys, when Iran and Hamas see American leaders holding Israel at arm's length, they see this is their opportunity to attack. Nothing like October 7th happened during the Trump administration, and I don't think it's a coincidence.
How much of what Netanyahu had to say, both in terms of his broadsides against the pro-Hamas protesters, as well as his history lessons, was directed at secular Jews in the West, particularly America?
I think it was dead. In America, secular Jews who are not that different, I think, culturally from their secular, liberal, non-Jewish counterparts. So it's a lesson for everyone, really. But I think it's also a lesson for those who have been listening to the United Nations and its bodies, who fundamentally deny Jewish indigeneity in the Holy Land. Right? They say Jews are not from Israel. Jews are not natives. Arabs who came in the 7th century, they're the natives. And it's a fundamental point that Netanyahu makes, that if you believe in native rights, if you believe in indigenous rights, you have to believe in the rights of the Jewish people. And we're not going anywhere because we have nowhere to go. This is our home.
The impact politically as it pertains to the November election here, people trying to get a handle on, as you know, the attrition of secular Jews from the Democrat Party to neutrality, if not all the way over to Trump. I mean, do you think that October 7th and what has transpired since will have a significant impact on the distribution of the vote among American Jews?
I think it has had an impact. I don't think it's as significant as it should be. That is to say, President Biden said that Israel's response to October 7th was over the top. President Biden responded to October 7th by calling for the creation of a Palestinian state and imposing sanctions on Jewish activists and Jewish protesters in Israel, an unprecedented sanctions regime. So that is a extremely disappointing policy towards Israel, especially when contrasted with the extraordinary successes of the Trump administration. That said, lots of Jews don't vote as Jews. They don't put Jewish or Israeli interests at the forefront of their mind, and so I doubt it will affect them. But there's, I think, a critical margin that will be affected. Of course, there's a bigger question the abandoning Biden as the candidate and switching to Kamala Harris, probably the Democrats see as an attempt to reset and get away from all of the bad legacy of the Biden administration. And the question is Kamala Harris going to inherit the baggage of Biden on Israel or not? And I think by rights she should, because not only was she part of the same administration, but her own comments and actions indicate that if anything, she would be even more hostile and critical of Israel.
Eugene Kontorovich is the head of the International Law Department at the Kohelet Policy Forum, which is a Jerusalem think tank. Also a law professor at George Mason University's Scalia Law School. Professor Kontorovich, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
This is Sean Thompson. When you go on vacation, does it make sense to have somebody else pack for you? Of course not. The same can be said for your retirement. Your 401k could be packed with things you don't know about or even need. If you're close to retirement, but you don't have a plan customized